we ready to start?
Yeah.
Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome to this meeting, Cabinet Scrutiny Committee on the 11th of November. Just to make you all aware, today's meeting is being recorded, and today if the meeting goes past 11 o'clock, we'll have a 2-minute silence to remember those brave people who gave their lives during the First and Second World Wars and in other conflicts throughout the world. Can I also welcome any members of the public and press to today's meeting? Can I kindly ask you to observe the meeting only and not to speak or to participate? Can I also remind you all to switch your mobile phones to mute and to silence for the duration of the meeting? And in addition, can I refer you to the protocol for remote meetings, which have been previously circulated, which we're all aware of? Namely, your microphone should be switched to mute unless you are speaking. Should you wish to ask a question or make a comment, can you please indicate that either using the chat function or by raising your electronic hand via Teams? And I'll assume that you've all read the paperwork before us today prior to the meeting. And in respect of the chat function, can I ask that you only use it to indicate to speak, or if you have an electronic malfunction, to raise any technical issues. When asking a question, if you can, please indicate which page number you're referring to. Say the first item on the agenda is to do a roll call. I'm Councillor Mike Harvey, the chair, and I'm obviously present. And I now call on Charlotte from Democratic Services to take a roll call. Charlotte, please.
Yes, Chair. So obviously I've got you down as present. We've had apologies from the Vice Chair, Councillor Rahman. Then Councillor Sharon Freegard.
Present.
Councillor Nigel Hent. Councillor Nigel Hent. Councillor Steve Hent.
I'm here, Charlotte.
Thank you. Councillor Dennis Keogh.
I'm present.
Councillor Simon Noyle. Councillor Alan Llewellyn.
Presennol Charlotte and present.
Councillor Sandra Miller.
Present.
Councillor Rydian Maisen.
I'm Charlotte presennol.
Councillor Del Morgan.
Presennol.
Councillor Suzanne Patson.
Present.
We've had apologies from Councillor Lynette Purcell as well, Chair. Councillor Sheila Penry.
Present.
Councillor Sonia Reynolds.
Present.
Councillor Alwyn Wilcock.
Presennol present, Chair.
Cabinet members, Councillor Rob Jones.
Yes, here, Charlotte.
Councillor Edward Latham.
Yeah, present, Charlotte.
Councillor Carol Clement Williams.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Doreen Jones.
Present.
Councillor Alan Lockyer.
Present, Charlotte.
Rees.
I'm present, Charlotte.
Thank you. Councillor Peter Richards.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Annette Wingrave.
I'm present, Charlotte.
Councillor Leanne Jones.
Present.
And then officers, Stephen Phillips.
Present.
Aled Evans.
Present.
Will Jenkins.
Present.
Andrew Jarrett.
Present.
Nicola Pierce. I think her sound has gone, isn't working, Chair, so I think
I saw it in the chat. It distracted me when it came up, so she's trying to sort it out with IT. Thank you.
Karen Jones.
Present.
Craig Griffiths.
Present.
Hugh Jones.
Yes, present, Charlotte.
Simon Brennan.
Present.
Terry Morris. Dave Griffiths. Karen Furlow. Tammy Davis.
Present.
Kelvin Davis.
Present.
Have I missed anyone at all? No, I think that's everyone, Chair. I'll try and get Councillor Nigel Hunt in, as I know he was in the briefing earlier, Chair, so we'll do that in the background.
Okay, that's great. Thanks for that. Item 2, declarations of interest. Any declarations, please raise your hand or let me know. No, I don't see any there. Item 3, pre-decision scrutiny. To select appropriate items from the Cabinet agenda for pre-decision scrutiny from the Cabinet reports. In pre-scrutiny, we've chosen to scrutinise items 4, 7 and 10 from the Cabinet agenda. So if we go to item 4, Revenue Budget Update and Monitoring Report Q2 2020 to 21, unless officers have got anything to add. No, then we'll go straight to questions. And first question is from Councillor Sharon Freegard, please.
Oh, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to ask Howell around the hillside report on page 28, some clarity around the losses and confirmation, obviously, that we will be refunded by Welsh Government.
Mr. Jenkins, please.
Yes, Chair. In terms of the information set out there, you can see at the bottom of the paragraph that we've already had a refund of 467,000 for the period April to June, and the predicted overspend at the moment of 894 is after taking that into account. But just for members to be aware, we have submitted recently a claim for the second quarter for the year, taking you through from July through to the end of September. The total claim that has been submitted to Welsh Government is £2.3 million, and of that, a further £326,000 is to do with Hillside. I would expect that 326,000 to come back from the Welsh Government, but in terms of the additional costs then over and above that, which is just over another £500,000, we will be submitting claims to the Welsh Government on a quarterly basis, but it'll depend on how much money they've got left within the local authority hardship fund as to whether that will be sufficient to deal with all of that 500,000. So that's how I see it at the moment, Chair. I can't guarantee that all the money will come back, but I would expect at least 320,000 to come back shortly.
Okay, thanks for that. Okay, Councillor Freegard.
So are you saying, Mr. Jenkins, that we may still be 200,000 down and we would have to fund that as a council?
At the moment, the difference between the 894 and the 320, which is going to be about 570,000, could be an element that we have to fund unless Welsh Government have got sufficient funds to actually top it up in the second half of the year. I don't know what that's going to look like, and that's why I am predicting this level of overspend at this point in time. But we will keep on monitoring it, and we will continue to pursue Welsh Government to make available more monies over the second half of the year to hopefully compensate for that additional increased costs.
Okay, thanks for that. Next question, Councillor Steve Hunt, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Firstly, I think you may have sort of answered the part of my question, but I will ask it anyway. On page 30, where the environment overspends and underspends are there, I appreciate this report is very similar every year with overspends, underspends, but particularly this year, given the circumstances. I think it's self-explanatory, and I think it explains why. But I just want to talk about the parking 903 overspend, where it mentions the Welsh Government have funded, you mentioned the hardship fund, but funded lost income from April to June, but indicated no further funding will be available for loss of income arising from local policy decisions. Are they referring to local policy decisions that this authority are making, or are they referring to something else? And on the hardship fund that you mentioned, it's a hardship fund. It's in the title. Are they putting further funds into that to support local authorities like ours right across Wales? Have we got any indications of further support and help that's very much needed to local authorities like ourselves? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Mr. Jenkins, please.
Thank you, Chair. In relation to the question from Councillor Hunt around parking, first of all, what they've said is that local decisions carried out by any local authority, they have to fund those additional costs or loss of income. And what is meant in terms of parking, as members are aware, we give free parking arrangements for the town centres through to the end of August. The parking charges were reintroduced from the 1st of September. So for the period July and August in particular, then they wouldn't be looking to provide any additional income for the local decisions. In terms of the seafront and others, of course, we reintroduced the charges from the 1st of August. So again, there will be a period of July where they wouldn't reimburse. But what they are prepared to accept is calls for additional funding for reduced footfall. So for the second quarter, we have submitted within the 2.3 million a claim for £181,000 for recovery. So we hope to get some of that back, Councillor Hunt, Chair, but not necessarily all the elements. And similar to the previous answer I gave, this prediction of 903,000 shortfall is for the rest of the financial year. Should additional funding become available from Welsh Government in the second half of the year, then hopefully some of that will also be reimbursed to us. Going to the general question then that Councillor Hunt asked. Initially, I think the Welsh Government made available in the first budget, supplementary budget, about £180 odd million worth of additional funding for local government. They've now increased that to £490 million and provided some additional top-up recently, for example, for extending free school meals through the school holidays through to Easter next year, and a few other small elements. So at the moment, as you can see from the report, I mentioned there's £510 million included within the local authority hardship fund. And I'm sure that the Welsh Government will continue to top that up should further lockdowns and further requirements be required, should they have the financial capacity to do so. So hopefully that gives an overview as well, Chair, of where the Welsh Government have provided substantial support to local authorities and for the services that we run.
Okay, thanks for that, Mr. Jenkins. I got two further indications. Councillor Susan Paterson and Councillor Nigel Hunt. Suzanne, please.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Jenkins, having read the report, I can see that this question won't be more or less than 50,000, but during the recent months, has homelessness made any demands on the council, and are you anticipating that it may?
Homelessness has provided additional pressures on the council, and as some members are probably aware, that we have put people in specific accommodation over the past, since the lockdown in March, to actually provide it. But most of the additional costs associated with that has been reimbursed to the council on the monthly claims that we have submitted. I don't have the actual figure in front of me as I speak, but certainly most of those costs have been reimbursed. And I do know that we have also been making bids to Welsh Government for additional capital investment and further investment to enable further improvements for those homeless services over the remaining part of the year as well.
Oh, well, thank you for that. I am thinking basically along the lines of people that may lose their living, may lose their business, and may not be able to keep up payments on mortgages. We are in a very deprived area as it is. So I'm pleased that officers are looking into the possibility of buying some property. So thank you very much, Mr. Jenkins.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Nigel Hunt, please.
Thank you, Chair. What I'd like to ask is, I've read the report, Howell, and to put into context, in 2017 there was a proposal for a prison in Baglan Moors, and when we were reassured in a personnel meeting that Hillside wouldn't cost this authority any money for the running of Hillside, and what we're looking at now is an overspend, a six-figure overspend. I just want you to confirm that, really, that Hillside there's a six-figure overspend on Hillside. And secondly, I was looking at you've got Princess Royal Theatre. There's an overspend in the Princess Royal Theatre of 62k. I was just wondering, is that the only theatre to have an overspend? And if so, why have we had an overspend there? Why is there 62k? And what have the other theatres done not to have an overspend? Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Jenkins, please.
Yeah, in terms of Hillside, as you would appreciate, we would normally have the facility fully occupied or quite substantially occupied during the year. But as a result of COVID, there is restrictions on how many children and youth can actually be placed there. That has affected the income level, so it's the income that has dropped, and that is why I know that Councillor Clement Williams, as our Cabinet Member for Finance, wrote earlier in this year to Julie James to encourage her to provide additional funding for the first quarter and to hopefully continue it for the rest of the year as funds become available. And that is one of the reasons why we were successful in getting the 467,000 back in the first quarter. And as I referred to answering the question from Councillor Freegard earlier, I would hope that we will be successful with another 320,000 for the second quarter, and that will reduce the projected overspend. But in normal years, yes, it wouldn't have an impact on the council. But in this extraordinary year, at the moment, I'm predicting a projected overspend, but hopefully by the end of the year, we will have had some recompense, further recompense in relation to that matter. Moving on to the question about theatres, as you were aware, all theatres have been closed since April, and they're unlikely to open before next financial year. And as a result, loss of income, we've made some savings on costs, as you would expect, and we have incurred, not generated any income. So we had a refund of 76,000 for the Princess Royal Theatre for the period April to June, and we're predicting a net loss of income for the remaining part of the year of about £62,000. It isn't the only one. All theatres would have been affected by this. And the position on them is that in terms of Ponadawe, it would have been smaller than that, and hence hasn't been mentioned in this report. But also in terms of the Gwyn Hall, for example, which is managed through arrangements with Celtic Leisure, they have been successful in making a bid for grant aid of £207,000 for this year to actually compensate them for loss of income of running the Gwyn Hall. So there is other theatres have been struggling in terms of it, but they have been successful in getting reimbursement of income loss from various sources. So hopefully that clarifies the position there, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that. I can see indication from the Cabinet member, Councillor Carol Clement-Williams. Carol, please.
It's a conversation that Hywel, the leadership, and myself had a little while ago on wording of the document for the budget end of year, where it says that we're overspending. We were very cautious to ensure that we included the words that it was due to an income shortfall as opposed to an operational kind of shortfall. So with Hillside, for example, it was because of the COVID restrictions and we couldn't bring new people in, etc. So when we're talking about the overspends, sometimes it's not overspending, it's actually income that we're losing, just for members to be aware of that. So it's worth getting into the nitty-gritty to have a look where these overspends actually are. Hywel mentioned the letter that I wrote to Julie. I also meet with Cabinet ministers very often in my role in the Finance Subgroup Committee. And to be fair to Welsh Government, they have been listening. They have they've stumped up the cash where we've actually explained we're having real issues. They've been very much a listening meetings, and they've come through for us. To be fair, as you know, as opposed to England, we've known for a long time that our free school meals are going to be paid to the children up until the end of March, and I'd like to thank Welsh Government for that. I mean, we put that one to bed a long time ago, and let's be fair, our kids have had a really hard time this year. You know, I really do feel for them, and this is one thing that the parents and the children won't need to worry about, and I welcome the money that the Welsh Government have given us. What I would say is that the Chancellor has cancelled his 3-year spending review this year, and who can blame him, to be fair. But there will be a statement on the 25th of November, so let's hope there's some barney consequentials and some of the money coming from the Chancellor for covering COVID losses of income, etc. and expenses. So finally, and I know I do thank them quite regularly, but I have to say the team, it seems to be a new grant every week from Welsh Government for all sorts of things. The extra work that Hywel, Hugh and Hinden and all the teams have had is extraordinary. The way that they've stepped up to the mark and just continue to produce is unbelievable. And I would like to put on record my huge thanks to the staff. They've been immense. So thank you very much for that. Thanks,
Okay.
Jack.
Thanks for that, and I think we all agree with Carol's comments and respect the hard work of you, Hywel, and Hugh and the staff. It's been a real tremendous effort right the way through these uncertain times. So you got 2 further indications just come in. People who spoke before, so long as it's short and to the point, please. Councillor Freegard.
Well, thank you, Chair, for that. Yeah, Councillor Carol Clement-Williams brought up about the wording, and just for my own understanding, if I could just have clarity, is it a loss of projected income, or are we actually suffering a deficit with Hillside? Just to be clear on that, I'm not quite clear. Thanks.
Chair, in terms of that, it's one and the same in this instance. We are having a reduced income to cover the costs, the fixed costs of running the facility, which is resulting in the projected loss for the remaining part of this year of the 894,000 mentioned in the report.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Nigel Hunt, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and keep it short and sweet. What we say in here, what I want to know is this authority paying out a six-figure fee for Hillside this year? Because we've been reassured in the past that this Hillside will not cost the authority a penny. Now we're talking about six figures here. Whether it's an underspend or a loss of income, it is six figures. So I just want you to, that's a simple question there. With regards to the theatre, could we? It's very good to hear about Gwyn Hall in Neath having secured that funding. Could we try and secure the same funding for the other theatres in the authority? Would that be possible? Thank you.
Mr. Jenkins, I think I know the answer for the Celtic Leisure and Respectable one. Go on.
In terms of the other centres, theatres, yes, we have included a bid within the 2.3 million for the second quarter. There's a different funding stream that Celtic Leisure have been successful in getting that £207,000. So within the 2.3 million that we've included monies for the extra 3 months from July to September for the Princess Theatre and other theatres in Talbot. And we will continue to look to securing that as we go through the remaining part of this year. Going back to the question posed by Councillor Hunt on Hillside, at the moment, it's projecting 894. When we come to the end of the year, we will know what the real figure is. At the moment, I don't know what that real figure is going to be. But as I said, I'm expecting £320,000 to be refunded for the second quarter. If that is replicated with Welsh Government providing more monies for us when we make claims for to the end of December quarter and then for the remaining part of the year, I would hope that figure will be more or less balanced by the year end. But I can't guarantee that at this point in time. It is very much too early to answer that question with a 100% guarantee, Chair. So I think that's the best position I can highlight at the moment. If I look at the overall picture for the council, Chair, that is at the moment predicting this £6.5 million projected overspend. 4.5 million of that is to do with the services, and I would hope at least 2 million of that will come off when we get the answer to the second quarter's income claim. So that will bring it down to about £2.5 million. And then the other element is to do with council tax costs, as more people make council tax support claims to the council and the recovery process of council tax over the remaining part of this year. I've allowed the £2 million on that at the moment, but I would hope that will again be recompensed by Welsh Government as part of this arrangement. But we've got to be prudent in terms of managing our overall finances. That's what I'm highlighting to you as part of this report to Scrutiny and then to Cabinet following this meeting. And I would envisage it to be slightly better off by the time we come to the next quarter, which will be reported to members at the beginning of January.
Okay, thanks for that, and let's hope. Okay, I see no other indications. Mr. Jarrett, you had your hand up and put it down. I take it Howell covered the point you were going to make.
Absolutely, Chair, that's fine, yes.
Okay, thanks. In respect to this item, the recommendations on page 39, are we happy for the recommendations to go as it is to Cabinet? Anybody not happy? No? Could I have a proposer, please?
Move the recommendation, Chair.
Really, thanks. Seconder?
I second.
Good. Anybody against or abstaining? No. Okay, that recommendation goes to Cabinet as it is. I say we decided not to scrutinise items 5 and 6 in pre-scrutiny. Item 7, the Afan Forest Park Visitor Centre, Valley's Regeneration Park Gateway project. I say this is a good news story, which is welcomed. Unless officers got anything to add, then we'll go straight to questions. And first question is from Councillor Arwyn Woolcock, please. Arwyn.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I concur that this is a very good news story, Chair, and it's very welcoming, particularly the £250,000 grant funding, which we will have to match fund, of course. But I'm just wondering, Chair, whether we're missing an opportunity here. I don't see any indication at all that the provision of electric vehicle charging points is going to be provided. I'm just wondering whether we perhaps should consider that. I note that the electrical infrastructure works will have to be carried out for the low-key lighting and the motorhome hookup points. So I'm just wondering, Chair, whether we could add some electric vehicle charging points as well. I note that Carmarthenshire County Council, Chair, are currently in the process of installing some electric charging points in their public car parks. For example, in Armandford, they provided 2 in the Carrigaman car park site, and another 2 in the other car park just off of Margaret Street. So I think we would be missing an opportunity here, Chair, and I'm just wondering whether that could be considered. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, Mr. Brennan, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Woolcock. Yes, we are looking at putting some charging points in. We do have a little bit of a problem. Well, not a problem, but we are working at the moment on capacity up there to see what capacity we've got, because obviously putting the additional lighting in and a few hookups for the motorhomes, we just want to make sure we've got capacity in the area. So all things being well, we should be able to include at least 1, possibly 2, if we can get to that point. But the charging points take a lot more power, unfortunately, than the hookups. So it's just about balancing that out. But fingers crossed, yes, we should have one. And on the wider point about charging points throughout the county borough, we're currently working with another party to bring forward a strategy on that so that we can introduce them into our public areas.
Thank you for that. So that's quite good news. Let's hope we can get as many electrical points as we can in with the current push towards electrical vehicles. So thank you. Next indication in pre-scrutiny I had was from Councillor Nigel Hunt, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll concur with Arwyn on 2 things, really. I think it's an excellent investment for the authority. We've got £250,000, which we're only matching with 60k, so it's a really good investment for the Avon Valley. I like the thought of a play area. I know that's going to get about 65k invested in it, and I'm just hoping that we can have some sort of adventure theme in this play area, because you know the Avon Valley has been identified as an excellent adventure sort of area. So I know you've got like a zip wire down in Aberafan Beach. My children love it. You know, I know that zip wire is used a lot. Will we have like some adventure theme in the play area? I also said about Arwyn saying I think it's an excellent idea to get that infrastructure in there so we could have an electrical charging point in the Avon Valley, especially so that electrical cars could go there. And with the hookups, is it like if we get like X amount of take up on there, would we be looking to expand that in the future? Because obviously it'd be good for tourism. And do we expect quite a high take up of the electrical hookups in Abernagoedd? So that's what I'm asking. Thanks, Si.
Okay. Let's see if I can remember all the questions in order. In terms of the play area itself, it's quite a difficult. It's not a huge area that we have to work with because we don't have a huge amount of space up there, unfortunately. So the Adventure Play have come up with some designs for us, and the one thing that we wanted to make sure that it was disabled friendly as well. So we've worked that into the design so that they've got disabled children would have access to it as well. So we've sort of worked within the space that we've got. I don't think there'll be any zip wires there, unfortunately, because it is restricted in terms of space. And it also needed to be, we wanted to have it in view of the cafe area for parents so that they could obviously monitor children whilst if they were in the cafe area or thereabouts as well. So it was working within the confines that we had. So unfortunately, I don't think there'll be a zip wire, but I mean, they will be catered for, obviously, the proposals from Margam Park, etc. So they are looking at that down there.
Okay.
Oh,
Thanks.
sorry, there was another point, wasn't there? Oh, sorry, you'll have to remind me. Sorry.
The electrical hookups, if there's going to be like X amount of,
right.
You know, will the take up on it, will we be looking to expand that going forward?
Well, I mean, it's always difficult to predict take up on these things, but we have had inquiries in the past. And this year, because of the issues around COVID, it seems there's been a bit of an explosion in people wanting to do, travelling with motorhomes, etc. So we're going to test the market there, see how it goes, and see whether it could be replicated in other areas.
Okay, thanks for that. Okay, and last indication for a question I had is from Councillor Steve Hunt, please. Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Again, I concur with what Nigel and Arwin have said. I think Arwin hit the nail on the head. He's spot on with his views, and Simon has answered them, so thank you for that. Given the circumstances that there's a huge adventure park still live that may happen, may not, but that's still live as well, as we all know, well documented in the press and out there. So there is opportunities, you're quite right. And I think, Simon, you're good at your job, so I'm sure you and your team will be maximising the contacts and the communication to get this right. So my one question was, on this particular report, how much involvement have the local members had? Because we keep saying in council, always have since the beginning of time, nobody knows their wards or their areas like the local members. So I just wondered, sometimes to fulfill what's needed for families and those living there, how much work or communication did you have with the local members in any design or whatever you wanted to put in this project, really? Thank you, Chair. Okay,
thanks. Mr. Brennan, please.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. The difficulty we had on this one, Councillor Hunt, is that, as you can see in the report, we were approached in October 2020 because of different circumstances with Welsh Government. So it had to be put together at sort of breakneck speed, unfortunately. In the wider sense, there will be there's quite widespread engagement with the members in the Afan Valley because there's a proposal with NRW around a master plan for the Afan Valley. So that will take place then. In this circumstance, we had a relatively small amount of money in real terms, the 250,000, and we had to work on projects that we could deliver within the time period. So there hasn't been an extensive consultation, but we think from the experience that the officers within tourism have got, that these are the items that have been constantly brought up in the past through discussions with members, etc. So they sort of deal with that from an historical point, if you like, rather than doing a new set of consultation.
Okay, thanks for that.
Yeah, can I just, Chair, can I just quickly?
Okay, yeah, quickly.
Thank you for that, Simon. Yeah, very quickly. I do appreciate your explanation, but I still think it's not very difficult when you have got something to speak to the local members, explaining what you have going forward and asking them for any inputs. I don't think that would hold up the procedure that you just mentioned. That's all. I think it's more of courtesy, involvement with local members when projects, no matter how big or small, are taking place in their wards. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thanks for that. I think the point is made. Okay, I don't see any other indications unless anybody got anything to say. No, so we can see the recommendations there in respect of this on page 72. Are we happy for the recommendations to go as they are to Cabinet? See heads nodding.
Recommendations, Chair, be referred to Cabinet.
Fine, thanks. Aaron proposes. Could I seconder for that, please?
A second, Chair.
Lovely, thanks. Anybody against or abstaining? No. Okay. Those recommendations go to Cabinet. So that's item 7. Item 8, urgent items. We decided not to scrutinise the council tax. And then item 9 is access to meetings. Again, item 10 is going into private. So could I, to resolve that, to exclude the public for the following items of business pursuant to Regulation 4, brackets 3 and brackets 5 of Statutory Instrument 2001, number 2290, and the undermentioned exempt paragraphs of Part 4 of Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act. Can I please have a proposer and seconder to move into private?
Move, Chair.
Second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Wilcock. Seconder, please.
Second, Chair.
Lovely, thanks for that. So we go into private. At this point,